We've taken a look at various gimbals in the past and there's little difference between them nowadays. Well, not so with this. A new design and feature-packed unit by Chinese manufacturer Goodson, the MOZA Mini-S. The MOZA Mini-S is a new 3-axis smartphone gimbal designed to be flexible, compact, user-friendly and packed with features. All that in a foldable design, which helps when it comes to storing and transporting the unit, considering in its folded state it's just a little longer than an iPhone XS Max. Even so, what the design saves in length, it adds to the width, so still a little bulky to transport. Nevertheless, opening the unit is nice and easy with a small latch that can be pulled back, and the entire top half rotated before latching back into place. A rather smooth operation, now producing the gimbal design we've pretty much become accustomed to. With a matte black finish and constructed primarily of plastic, the unit weighs in at just under 500 grams, which is around standard for gimbals of this size. Although there's no rubberized grip to be found here, the handle is slightly slanted forward, which, according to the manufacturer, results in an ergonomically better hand position while operating the gimbal and thus reduces the danger of the hand slipping, even though a rubberized finish would have been better in my opinion. Nevertheless, on the bottom we find a standard 1/4 inch 20 thread, allowing connection to tripods, with a mini tripod being included within the package, which does counteract that otherwise ergonomic position. Further up on the hand grip, passing some branding, we find a single battery status indicator. Now the battery in this unit is built in and not removable, although it does last for around 5 hours on a single charge, albeit taking 3 hours to fully charge in the first instance, which is done via the USB-C charging port on the side of the device, along with the included USB-C to USB-A charging cable. There's no plug adapter included though, so you'll need to provide your own for faster charging. Otherwise, we have the main power button just above, although the main controls are placed on the front within easy reach of your thumb, consisting of a dial incorporating various controls depending upon the active mode, and a thumbstick used to move the gimbal around during use. The buttons do lack some tactile feedback though, so we'll need to see how these fare with some use. Accompanying these are buttons on one side for zooming into your subject. Finally, on the rear is a trigger button, again used for various controls depending on whether you're tapping or holding. We'll come back to this shortly. So at the top we find the main gimbal, with the roll axis being locked and unlocked with a simple push. This opens up the typical design we've become accustomed to, with these 3 motors compensating for various movements. The motors are neat, yet large enough to compensate for the larger smartphones available nowadays, albeit without 360-degree motion, which is understandable considering the size of the smartphone it holds. And talking of smartphones, a simple clamp with a rubber-lined surface for added grip is placed at the forefront, allowing users to place a smartphone within its jaws, as central as possible mind, to try to balance the handset as much as possible and reduce unnecessary stress on the motors. Once in place, we can appreciate the attention to detail with this design. Take the tilt motor for example. It sits back behind the smartphone, perfectly aligned, rather than on one side of the handset, keeping a more compact overall structure. We also have a micro USB port by the tilt motor, which can be used to charge the included handset, although the cable isn't included within the package. With a smartphone balanced as best as possible, the unit does feel a little top heavy, although nothing that'll topple it over when freestanding. Nevertheless, a single press of the power button and the unit comes to life, stabilizing across all 3 axes and compensating for your movements. And it does this just as well as any other smartphone gimbal, performing equally as well. The thumbstick can be used to move the gimbal around, again very smoothly, and it's progressive too. The more you move the stick, the faster the gimbal will move. No issues here at all. In its default mode, the tilt and roll motors are locked and the pan is active. The trigger located on the front of the stabilizer, when double pressed, will recenter the handset and the camera, while a tap and hold will release the tilt motor and help follow your movements. And a double tap and hold will lock all axes and keep the camera pointing in the one direction. It does take some memorization and a little getting used to, but once mastered, the controls are refreshingly quick and easy to use. What's even more useful though is the ability to connect the stabilizer to the MOZA Genie app, freely available on the Android and Apple App Store. This is done via the unit's Bluetooth connectivity and the connection process is quick and seamless. Here we have our main camera view with battery status for both the handset and gimbal conveniently located in the top corner. What's more useful though is the buttons on the gimbal itself now become active and make the device so much easier to use. Tap on the middle button to start and stop video capture with a timer displayed on screen, while a double tap of the same button captures a still image. And the zoom buttons on the side also become active too. We can even enter the camera menus where we have a ton of options to choose from. Apart from enabling the user to capture cinematic and smooth footage, the MOZA Mini-S also features various shooting modes. These all differ somewhat and take some time to get used to in order to see what each one does, but there are a wealth of options to choose from, allowing you to really customize your shot. As mentioned, the buttons do lack some tactile feedback and are often pressed twice, thinking the first press didn't register, but of course you can use the handset itself to tap and swipe as normal. What's also impressive is the tracking mode, where we simply draw a box around your object and the gimbal will start to follow. And it works really well, even capturing faster motion where other gimbals would fail. I actually repeated this test several times, and each time it locked on and tracked perfectly, easily right up there with the best. So we've determined the MOZA Mini-S is a feature-rich handheld gimbal, probably one with the most features I've tested to date bolted onto one handheld device. Like other handheld stabilizers, it can't do much about the up and down motion as you walk or run, you need a proper Steadicam for that, but it still manages to iron out a lot to give you some really smooth video footage. Just as putting a top quality camera in the hands of an amateur doesn't mean they'll end up with top quality photos, it's the same with the gimbal. You'll have to put some time into practicing and thinking about how you want your shots to look in order to get really good footage. In the locked mode, for example, you can move slowly to emulate a slider shot, while the pan mode is good if you're walking around. As for the gimbal itself, there were no performance issues at all throughout testing, and it was comfortable to hold and use even during longer shooting sessions. And of course, at the end of a shooting session, fold the gimbal up conveniently to store it away. So the MOZA Mini-S is clearly aimed at the consumer market. If you're looking into a stabilizer for your mobile device, especially if you're new to such accessories, this is a very inexpensive way to get your feet wet and learn the basics on how to use a motorized gimbal system. Professional filmmakers use motorized stabilizers to create smooth footage, and this is a very inexpensive way to increase the production quality of your video. It's easy to use once you memorize the button combinations, that is. The stabilization is fantastic, and the battery life, albeit taking 3 hours to charge, easily lasts me an entire day of shooting here and there. What's more important is that the connection between the gimbal and the app remained solid throughout, with the tracking feature being impressively quick. And other than maybe some more tactile feedback on the mushy buttons, I'm hard pressed to find any major faults. At only $79, you'll be hard pressed to find a better stabilizing product on the market, and the MOZA Mini-S certainly gets my vote as a great all-rounder.